Hi, I'm Michael Douglas. I may be a physician, but I'm not here to talk about medicine. I'm here to talk about music. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Pundit, our first episode. I'm Michael Douglas, and today we're going to be talking about, fittingly, one of my favorite albums of all time. And I hesitate to say that it is my favorite album, even though 98% of me wants me to say that. I won't. Today we'll be talking about the Jacksons, specifically the album Triumph. Now, if you head over to my website, drpundit.com, and go to the podcast section, you'll also see that I host a podcast called Music Makes Me High. And this album was the inaugural episode more than a year ago that I recorded. And I thought it fitting to kick off my vlog channel with the same album because it's an incredible album. And it's my way to mark posterity when I upload this video that this video will always tell the world that I consider it that important to be an album that I review for my first episode. Now, there are a lot of reasons why this record is important to me. You can hear on the podcast episode why that is. I'll kind of cut to the chase there. This is an album that was released in September of 1980. I picked it up in early 1981. It was one of the first 3 or 4 albums I ever bought with my hard-earned allowance money. And, I can't remember what jobs I was doing at the time, probably some yard work or something like that. But it's an album that has resonated with me over the past 40 years. It's an album that I play probably at least 40 to 50 times a year. Now, if you did the math, that's at least 2,000 listens to this album in various formats, whether it be vinyl, cassette, or CD, of course, streaming now. Streaming makes it a lot easier, of course, but it's an album that I've easily listened to more than probably 2,250 times, 3,000 times. It's just a great album. And the reason why I like it that much, it's a desert island album, is that out of all the Jacksons albums, and the Jacksons, of course, was the incarnation after the Jackson 5, when they went to Epic Records in 1976. This, I feel, is their strongest album. Of course, they had their self-titled album. They had Destiny from 1978. They had this album. They had the kind of ill-fated Victory album in 1984. This album has stood the test of time. And before I go into it, let's just talk about the tracks that are on the album. Can You Feel It? Lovely One, Your Ways, Everybody, This Place Hotel or Heartbreak Hotel, Time Waits for No One, Walk Right Now, Give It Up, and Wondering Who. That's it. 9 tracks, but 9 strong, tight tracks. And this is an album that I think, Michael Jackson was between Off the Wall and Thriller with this album. And immediately after the marketing push for Off the Wall ended, he was right back in the studio recording with his brothers. And another reason why I think this album has really come together for me is that Michael really honed a lot of skills that became rather commonplace for him and really set the stage for his recording prowess, songwriting prowess, that the upcoming decade of the 80s that would radically change his life so much, was in store. And a good example of this is the track Time Waits for No One on Triumph. It reminds me of his top 10 smash from Off the Wall called She's Out of My Life, one of 4 top 10s from that album. The way he delivers this pretty much only ballad on Triumph is spot on, and it's kind of reminiscent of what he was doing on his seminal work in Off the Wall. And it really shows in this album. It's a very plaintive ballad, but it's a song that is absolutely just sucks you in. The way he delivers it, just fantastic. It's just one of the reasons why I love this album so much. It's an album that is always on my favorites list. It's always in my like tracks on Apple Music. I'll just continue to listen to it 40 or 50 times every year until I die. I mean, it's that good. So it's a great album to start this channel with, Triumph. Let me talk about some of the other tracks on this album. I won't be talking about all of them, just the ones that really stand out to me. Can You Feel It? The first track on the album is a rousing anthem of empowerment. Another reason it stands out is that there was a video for this album, and it debuted on American Bandstand in late 1980. And at that time, this was before MTV. MTV didn't come out until August of 81, and even then it was in limited markets. This whole video music concept where things were just, wow, pictures to music, that's just another aspect to Michael Jackson's career where he was an innovator. And of course, everyone knows what happened with the videos to Thriller, not to mention, of course, the video to the title cut. Another track that I think deserves mention on this completely stellar album is Give It Up. Now, it's a track that if you listen to one of my stations that I curate, part of the Dr. Pundit radio station network, and again, you can go to my blog, my website, drpundit.com, and see the list of stations that I have. On my yacht rock stations, this song is a staple. Now, Give It Up, of course, was written and conceived around the time where this genre of music was just getting off the ground with the kind of the smooth jazz pop sounds that Quincy Jones, of course, was just one of many producers playing a part in, and of course within his work with Michael Jackson. Give It Up is that kind of yacht rock sound, kind of a slow chugger until it gets to its crescendo. Just another great track, never released as a single from the album. Another reason to like this album. And I don't know what else to say. Triumph is a triumph. It was an album that made the top 10 on the pop charts, the Billboard 200, hit number 1 in the R&B single or the R&B albums chart. By far, like I said, their most successful. And it's an album whose key tracks, Can You Feel It, Walk Right Now, Lovely One, their biggest hit from the album, Heartbreak Hotel, This Place Hotel, we'll talk about that in a second, I guess. These tracks continue to get play on internet stations focused on what we call jam and oldies, or songs from the post-disco era that were heavily R&B influenced, R&B oldies tracks. It's just another reason to investigate this album if you never have. And I think a good place to start would be to listen to my inaugural podcast episode featuring this album. Now, a little bit about Heartbreak Hotel. It was a song that was called that on original pressings of the album, but changed to This Place Hotel because the record company Epic didn't want to confuse the title with the Elvis Presley track from, if you can believe it, 20 to 25 years before that track was made. And of course, today, this really wouldn't be an issue. It's just another song with a similar title. But, it's one of those fine, trivial points that I think people think about when they think about this album, or music lovers like myself. Can You Feel It? A fantastic album. Michael Jackson was really in his prime. He was willing to step up to the plate, help his brothers produce a great album, a memorable album, and he took what he learned from the sessions of this album, along with Off the Wall, and carry that into the 1980s. And of course, the rest is history, at least for that decade. Give it a listen. And this is a 5-star album without a doubt. It's one of my all-time favorites. Triumph by the Jacksons. And if you like what you see here on this channel, please consider liking and subscribing. And I hope to see you next time on the next episode of Dr. Pundit. And as the late, great Barry White used to say, let the music play.